There has been a fair bit of understandable controversy around the Hugos, with books such as the Nebula and Locus award-winning Babel by R.F. Kuang being made ineligible with no reason being given. It would seem that some authors and books were excluded as they were undesirable to the Chinese authorities, as this is where the Hugos were held recently. Others have done videos on this controversy, so I will link their videos down below, as in this video I want to show you 20 fantastic sci-fi and fantasy awards that you should check out, which are not the Hugos. Let me know in the comments how many of these you are aware of and which are your favourites, and also any I have missed, as I'm always curious to see what other book prizes there are to follow. I've tried to arrange them by the month they announce their winners. Now, there will be a bit of variability in some of these awards as they move around a bit from year to year, but it should give you a good guide as to what to look out for as we move through the year. So in February, we had the Crawford Award, which was first awarded in 1985, the International Association in the Fantastic in the Arts William L. Crawford Award, or more simply, the Crawford Award, is given to a writer whose first fantasy book was published during the preceding calendar year. The author can have published in other genres, but this must be their first fantasy book. Children's and YA fiction are eligible. The prize is judged by a panel of award-winning writers and critics, and while the majority of honorees have been residents of the United States, the international dimension of the award is reflected by winners from Sweden, Barbados, India, Australia, New Zealand, Pakistan, and Malaysia. The winner is usually announced in February, with the award ceremony taking place in March. The most recent winners are The Spear Cuts Through Water by Simon Jimenez, Midnight Doorways, Fables from Pakistan by Usman T. Malik, The Empress of Salt and Fortune by Nai Vo, Gideon the Ninth by Tamsin Muir, and The Poppy War by R.F. Kuang. In March, we have the Philip K. Dick Award, named after the science fiction writer and first awarded in 1983, the year after his death. The Philip K. Dick Award is presented annually with the support of the Philip K. Dick Trust for distinguished science fiction published in the paperback original form in the United States during the previous calendar year. The award is sponsored by the Philadelphia Science Fiction Society and the Philip K. Dick Trust, and the awards ceremony is sponsored by the Northwest Science Fiction Society. The 6 shortlist books for this year's award are Danged Black Thing by Eugene Bacon, The Museum of Human History by Rebecca Bergman, Infinity Gate by M.R. Carey, Wild Spaces by S.L. Coney, Where Rivers Go to Die by Dilman Diller, These Burning Stars by Bethany Jacobs, and recent winners include The Extractionist by Kimberly Inger, Dead Space by Callie Wallace, Road Out of Winter by Alison Stone, Sooner or Later Everything Falls into the Sea by Sarah Pinkster, and The Theory of Bastards by Audrey Schulman. The BSFA Awards are given every year by the British Science Fiction Association since 1970. They are awarded each year at the EasterCon to the best novel, short fiction, artwork and work of non-fiction published in the previous calendar year, and is voted by members of the British Science Fiction Association. Adrian Tchaikovsky has won in 3 of the last 5 years for his books The City of Last Chances, Shards of Earth and Children of Ruin. Other recent winners include The City We Became by N.K. Jemisin, Embers of War by Gareth L. Powell, The Rift by Nina Allen. In April, Spiffbo, or the Self-Published Fantasy Blog-Off, is an annual literary contest intended to bring greater visibility to self-published English-language fantasy authors. It has been operated since 2015 by the author Mark Lawrence, who distributes 300 novels submitted by the authors to 10 fantasy bloggers to review. Each blogger selects a finalist, which is then reviewed by all 10 bloggers, and the winner is the finalist with the highest average review score. The contest has been credited with making high-quality, self-published novels discoverable and with boosting the careers of winners. Recent winners include Small Miracles by Olivia Atwater, Rain and Ruin by J.D. Evans, The Lost War by Justin Lee Anderson, The Sword of Kaigan by M.L. Wang, and Orconomics by J. Zachary Pike. In May, we have the Compton Crook Award, or otherwise known as the Stephen Toole Award, is presented to the best of each year's English language first novel by an author in the field of science fiction, fantasy or horror by members of the Baltimore Science Fiction Society at their annual science fiction convention, Balticon, and has been presented since 1983. Compton Crook, who wrote under the name Stephen Toole, hence the the dual name, was a long-time Baltimore resident, Towson University professor and science fiction author who died in 1981. Recent winners of this award are The Ballad of Perilous Graves by Alex Jennings, A Master of Djinn by P. Djeli Clark, The Space Between Worlds by Micaiah Johnson, A Memory Called Empire by Arkady Martin, and The Poppy War by R.F. Kuang. The Nebula. The Nebula Awards recognise the best works of science fiction or fantasy published in the United States. The awards are organised and awarded by the Science Fiction and Fantasy Writers Association, or SFWA, a non-profit association of professional science fiction and fantasy writers. They were first given in 1966, originally for 4 categories: novel, novella, novelette, and short story. Other categories have since been added, including best script and best game writing. Award nominees and winners are chosen by members of the SFWA. Works are nominated each year by published authors who are members of the organisation, with the 6 works that receive the most nominations forming the final ballot. Members then vote on the ballot throughout March, and the final results are presented at the Nebula Awards ceremony in May. Recent winners of the Best Novel category have been Babel by R.F. Kuang, A Master of Djinn by P. Djeli Clark, Network Effect by Martha Wells, A Song for a New Day by Sarah Pinkston, and The Calculating Stars by Mary Robinette Kowal. The Australian Science Fiction Awards, more commonly known as the Ditmars, due to them having been financially supported at their inception by Australian fan and artist Martin James Ditmar Jensen, they have been awarded annually since 1969 at the Australian National Science Fiction Convention, NACCON, to recognise achievement in Australian science fiction, including fantasy and horror. The recent winners of the Best Novel Award are 36 Streets by T.R. Mapper, The Bridge by J.S. Brukela, The Left-Handed Booksellers of London by Garth Nix, The Year of the Fruitcake by Gillian Pollack, and The City of Lies by Sam Hawke. In June, we have the Oralis Awards for Excellence in Speculative Fiction, which is an annual literary award for science fiction, fantasy and horror written by Australians and was first awarded in 1996. They have separate awards for fantasy, sci-fi and horror, and each genre has awards for novel, novella and short story, which means a lot of awards. There's a panel of at least 3 judges for each award who are all volunteers involved in the speculative fiction community. Recent fantasy winners are Path of Thorns by Angela Slater, Dark Rise by C.S. Pascat, The Left-Handed Booksellers of London by Garth Nix, and for science fiction, the recent winners have been 36 Streets by T.R. Mapper, Walking Romeo by Catherine Barker, The Animals in That Country by Laura Jean Mackay, and Repo Virtual by Corey J. White. The Lambda Literary Awards, otherwise known as the Lammies, are awarded to recognise the crucial role LGBTQ writers play in shaping the world. The Lammies celebrate the very best in LGBTQ literature and began in 1989. There are over 20 individual awards, including gay fiction, lesbian fiction, bisexual literature, poetry, graphic novel, and many, many more. But for the focus of this video, they have a speculative fiction award which covers sci-fi, fantasy, and horror. Recent winners of this include The Wicked and the Willing by Lian Yu Tan, No Gods, No Monsters by Cadwell Turnbull, Everyone on the Moon is Essential Personnel by Julian K. Jarboe, The Deep by Rivers Solomon, Davies Diggs, William Hudson and Jonathan Snipes, and The Breath of the Sun by Isaac R. Fellman. Then we have the Locus Awards, which began in 1971 and normally presented towards the end of June. These awards recognise the best science fiction, fantasy and horror of the previous year, with separate awards for each genre. Anyone can vote for these awards, but Locus magazine subscribers' votes count double. This, along with the Nebulas and Hugos, are generally considered by many as one of the 3 big awards. Recent winners of the Best Fantasy Novel are Babel by R.F. Kuang, Jade Legacy by Fonda Lee, The City We Became by N.K. Jemisin, Middle Game by Sheenan Maguire, Spinning Silver by Naomi Novik, and recent Best Sci-Fi Novel winners include The Kaiju Preservation Society by John Scalzi, A Desolation Called Peace by Arkady Martin, Network Effect by Martha Wells, The City in the Middle of the Night by Charlie Jane Anders, and The Calculating Stars by Mary Robinette Kowal. The Kitschies. These awards are administered by a non-profit association and presented for the year's most progressive, intelligent and entertaining works that contain elements of the speculative or fantastic. Published in the United Kingdom, started in 2009, there are awards for Best Novel, or Red Tentacle Award. There are also awards for Best Debut, the Golden Tentacle, Best Cover Art, the Inky Tentacle, There were no awards in 2016 or 2021, and this is a juried award with the stated mission of encouraging and elevating the tone of the discussion of genre literature in its many forms. Recent Red Tentacle winners include The Galaxy and the Ground Within by Becky Chambers, Piranesi by Susanna Clarke, The Firestarters by Jan Carson, Circe by Madeline Miller, and The Rift by Nina Allen. In July, we have SPSFC, the self-published science fiction competition, or SPSFIC, is only in its third year and runs in a very similar manner to SPIFFO, but for self-published sci-fi rather than fantasy. It was created by Hugh Howey and Duncan Swan with the aim of raising the profile of self-pub sci-fi, as well as a Best Novel category. They also have a Best Cover award. The two previous winners are Iron Truth by S.A. Tholin and The Last Gifts of the Universe by Rory August. And in August, we have the Prometheus Award. This is an award for the best science fiction or fantasy fiction promoting individual freedom and human rights, or critiquing tyranny, slavery, war, and other abuses of government power, given annually by the Libertarian Futurist Society. The Best Novel Award was first given in 1979, but didn't become a regular award until 1982, when the newly founded Libertarian Futurist Society took it on. As well as Best Novel, they also have a Hall of Fame award for classic works of libertarian or anti-authoritarian sci-fi or fantasy. Recent Best Novel winners include Cloud Castles by Dave Free, Rich Man's Sky by Will McCarthy, The Hook by Barry B. Longear, Alliance Rising by C.J. Cherry and Jane S. Fancher, Causes of Separation by Travis J.I. Corcoran. Then we've got the Mythopoeic Awards, which was established by the Mythopoeic Society in 1971. These awards for adult literature is given to the fantasy novel, multi-volume novel, or single author story collection for adults published during the previous year that exemplifies the spirit of the Inklings. The Inklings were an informal literary discussion group associated with J.R.R. Tolkien and C.S. Lewis at the University of Oxford for nearly 2 decades, between sort of the early 1930s and late 1940s. Books eligible for 2 years after the publication, unless shortlisted during the first year of eligibility. Books from a series are eligible if they stand on their own. Otherwise, the series becomes eligible the year its final volume appears. There are now awards for children's literature and young adult, as well as a scholarship award for books on the members of the Inklings and more general works on the genre of myths and fantasy. Recent winners of the Adult Fantasy Award are When the Angels Left the Old Country by Sasha Lamb, Or What You Will by Joe Walton, The House in the Cerulean Sea by T.J. Klune, Snow White Learns Witchcraft by Theodora Goss, Spinning Silver by Naomi Novik. We then come to the Arthur C. Clarke Award, named after the British author, who gave a grant to establish the award in 1987, and it is given to the best science fiction novel published in the UK in the prior calendar year. The winner is chosen by a panel of judges from the British Science Fiction Association, the Science Fiction Foundation, and the Sci-Fi London Film Festival. The most recent winners are Venomous Lumpsucker by Ned Bowman, Deep Wheel Orcadia by Harry Josephine Giles, The Animals in That Country by Laura Jean Mackay, The Old Drift by Namwali Sapel, Rosewater by Tade Thompson. Then we have the Aurora Awards, which are granted annually by the Canadian Sci-Fi and Fantasy Association and the SFF Boreal Inc. The award for Best Novel was first awarded in 1982 as the award for Best Outstanding Work, and is 2 awards, one granted to an English language work and one to a French language work. It is given to the best Canadian science fiction or fantasy novel of the previous year. Recent English language winners include The Embroidered Book by Kate Hartfield, Jade Legacy by Fonda Lee, Mexican Gothic by Silvia Moreno Garcia, The Gossamer Mage by Julie E. Seneda, Armed in Her Fashion by Kate Hartfield. Then in September we have the British Fantasy Awards. The British Fantasy Awards, or BFA, have been awarded by the British Fantasy Society since 1976. Members of the British Fantasy Society vote to decide the shortlist, and then a jury decides the winner. There are a range of awards including Best Fantasy, Best Horror, Best Artist, Best Audio, and many, many more. The most recent winners of the Best Fantasy Awards are The Spear Cuts Through Water by Simon Jimenez, She Who Became the Sun by Shelley Parker Chan, The Once and Future Witches by Alex E. Harrow, The Bone Ships by R.J. Barker, and The Bitter Twins by Jen Williams. In October, we have the Ignite Awards, which began in 2020 alongside the inaugural FireCon, a virtual convention centering the contributions and experiences of Black, Indigenous, and people of colour in speculative fiction. The Ignite seek to celebrate the vibrancy and diversity of the current and future landscapes of science fiction, fantasy, and horror. The Ignited Awards are part juried and part public vote. Finalists are selected by the convention committee, and winners are then determined in an online ballot. There are a range of awards, including Best Creative Non-Fiction, Best Artist, Best in Speculative Poetry, as well as Best Novel awards for adult, young adult, and middle grade. The winners of the Best Adult Novel are The Blood Trials by N.E. Davenport, Master of Jin by P. Shelley Clark, Black Sun by Rebecca Roanhorse, Gods of Jade and Shadow by Silvia Moreno Garcia. We then have the Ursula K. Le Guin Prize, which only started in 2022 and is awarded to a writer whose work reflects the concepts and ideas that were central to Ursula's own work, including, but not limited to, hope, equity and freedom, non-violence and alternatives to conflicts, and a holistic view of humanity's place in the natural world. To be eligible, a book must be a book-length work of imaginative fiction written by a single author, published in the US in English or in translation to English, and published in the specific window for each year's prize. After a writer wins the award once, they cannot be nominated for the prize again. The only two winners of the prize so far are Arboreality by Rebecca Campbell and The House of Rust by Khadija Abdallah Bajaber. Finally, we have the World Fantasy Awards. First awarded in 1975, the World Fantasy Awards are a set of awards for best fantasy fiction published during the previous calendar year and presented at the World Fantasy Convention. Currently, World Fantasy Awards are given in 5 written categories: novel, novella, short fiction, collection and anthology. There's also 1 category for artists and 4 special categories for individuals to honour their general work in the field of fantasy. The most recent winners for Best Novel are Saint Death's Daughter by C.S.E. Cooney, The Jasmine Throne by Tasha Suri, Trouble the Saints by Alea Dawn Johnson, Queen of the Conquered by Kaysen Callender, and Witchmark by C.L. Polk. And that's it. 20 of the best sci-fi and fantasy awards out there. Let me know which ones are your favourites and any that I've missed, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.